Have you ever sat at the kitchen table with your grown child? Maybe at a little diner in Chicago or a coffee shop in Dallas, and they said something that felt like a punch you didn't expect. Not yelling, not storming out of the room, but a phrase that made your stomach turn ever so slightly. You told yourself, they're tired, or maybe I'm just being too sensitive. After all, this is the same son or daughter you cradled as a baby, walked across the street holding their tiny hand, worked 2 jobs to support, and prayed for late at night. It's natural to give them the benefit of the doubt. But here's the truth. Many parents don't want to face some of those phrases, the subtle little digs or the comments dripping with dismissal, aren't just thoughtless words. They are signs, red flags that the relationship is sliding into something unhealthy. These aren't the normal disagreements every family has. No, these are patterns of manipulation, disrespect, and control. And here's the hardest part to accept. Sometimes, the person wounding you isn't a stranger or a neighbor, it's your own child, now. This doesn't mean you give up on your family. Not at all. It means you finally give yourself permission to recognize when a line has been crossed. It means you reclaim your dignity and peace by standing strong, even if that requires stepping away emotionally or physically for a time. So let me ask you, has your daughter ever looked at you and said with bitterness, "You were never there for me," even though you missed meals to pay for her school clothes and sacrificed vacations so she could attend ballet lessons? Has your son ever scoffed at your opinion, brushing you off like your years of living somehow mean nothing? Those moments don't just sting, they reveal something deeper. Today, we're going to walk through 7 phrases that should stop you in your tracks. Phrases that show when respect has left the room and when protecting your own heart matters most. 1. You owe me. Now. Your child might not say those exact 3 words. Maybe it comes wrapped in guilt like, "After everything I went through because of you," or, "If you'd done a better job raising me, I wouldn't be struggling now." But the meaning is the same. They're holding your role as a parent over your head like a debt collector, as if raising them was some sort of business transaction instead of the sacred bond of family. Friends, that is not love. That is manipulation. When your grown son insists that you hand over part of your retirement account because it's the least you can do, or your daughter suggests that you should keep babysitting her children every single weekend because you owe her for the way she grew up, that's not honoring you, that's using you. Yes, children can ask questions about the past. Yes, they can bring up hurts in an honest way. But when the conversation turns into a demand, when your love is treated like currency they get to collect, the relationship has shifted into something harmful. You don't owe your children endless sacrifice in your senior years. You don't owe them your peace of mind or your financial security, what you gave decades of love, sleepless nights, countless meals, rides to practice, hospital visits, encouragement, and correction was your role as a parent, and you gave it freely. If they can't see that, if they weaponize guilt to control you, it may be time to take a step back, because your worth is not defined by how much more you can give. 2. You're just old. You wouldn't understand. Maybe you've heard it after offering advice. Maybe it slipped out of their mouth when you tried to share a story about your own life lessons. At first, it sounds like a joke, but in reality, it dismisses decades of wisdom. Think about it. You lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Vietnam War, the economic ups and downs of the 70s and 80s, the shock of September 11th, and the rise of technology that changed the world. You've seen trends come and go, presidents rise and fall, and families build and rebuild. And yet, with one word old, they sweep all of that aside, as if your perspective has no weight. Being older doesn't make you out of touch. It makes you seasoned. It makes you valuable. Your voice carries a perspective that no smartphone, no Google search, and no 20-year-old influencer can ever replicate. So when your child uses your age to silence you, to cut you out of the conversation, recognize it for what it is. Disrespect, not progress, not independence, just plain disregard. And here's the truth. You don't have to keep fighting to be heard. Sometimes the wisest act is to quietly withdraw your energy, to stop forcing your presence where it isn't respected, because your worth does not diminish when they ignore you. It shines all the brighter when you refuse to be silenced. 3. If you don't help me, I'll do it without you. At first, this phrase can sound harmless. After all, isn't independence something we hope our children learn? But when your grown son or daughter says, "If you don't help me, I'll figure it out without you," pay attention to the tone. Is it spoken with maturity? Or does it carry the edge of a threat? Many parents across America have faced this exact situation. Imagine sitting in your living room in Phoenix or New York, your child asking for money, or a car, or help with rent. You hesitate. Maybe you want to say no because you need that money for your medication, or because you want them to learn responsibility. Instead of respecting your answer, they shoot back, "Fine, if you don't help me, I'll do it on my own." Now on the surface, that sounds like resilience, but in reality, it often masks manipulation. It's a way of putting you in a corner, making you fear losing the relationship if you don't cave to their demand. And here's where it gets dangerous. That fear of being shut out, of having your son or daughter disappear from your life, can lead you to give in over and over again. You start saying yes, not because it's right, but because you're scared. But love should never be rooted in fear. A healthy adult child doesn't dangle your relationship over your head like a bargaining chip. Real closeness isn't conditional. If their affection only comes when they're asking for something, that isn't family, it's a transaction. You deserve better. This stage of life, your 60s, 70s, 80s, is meant to bring rest, joy, and freedom. You have already carried the heavy loads. You've already done the late nights, the sacrifices, the hard labor. These years should be about enjoying what you've built, not being guilted into constant demands. Walking away emotionally from that cycle isn't easy. I know, it goes against every instinct of a parent's heart. But setting that boundary, saying enough, is sometimes the most loving act you can do, because it teaches them that respect goes both ways. Or, "You're the reason I turned out this way." If you've ever heard this, maybe it was shouted in anger, or maybe whispered in bitterness. Either way, it sinks into your soul. You start replaying every memory. Did I work too much? Did I say no too often? Did I miss something they needed? But here's the truth that every parent needs to hear. No matter how much love and effort you poured into raising your children, they are adults now. They make their own choices, and those choices belong to them, not you. Yes, every parent makes mistakes. Maybe you weren't perfect, none of us are, but you showed up. You kept a roof over their head. You guided them as best you could with the tools you had at the time. That is what matters. When a grown child blames you for every setback in their adult life, whether it's financial struggles, relationship failures, or personal unhappiness, they're refusing to take responsibility. And as long as they keep pointing the finger at you, they'll never grow. Think of it this way. If your daughter in Los Angeles insists that her unhappiness at work is all because of how you raised her, or your son in Atlanta says his failed marriage is your fault, notice what's happening. They're unloading their baggage onto your shoulders, expecting you to carry it. That's not healing. That's avoidance. You are not a scapegoat. You are not the reason for every problem in their adult life. Yes, they may need therapy. Yes, they may need to reflect on childhood wounds. But the constant refrain of "you ruined me" or "you're the reason I'm struggling" is unfair and untrue. And if you continue to accept that blame, you'll stay trapped in a cycle of guilt. But the moment you stop carrying it, the moment you say, "No, that belongs to you, not me," you free yourself. And ironically, you give them the best chance to finally grow up. Because when you stop being their excuse, they are forced to look at themselves. And that is where real change can begin. 5. You never really loved me. This one, friends, is like a dagger. If you've ever sat across from your son or daughter and heard them whisper, or maybe even yell, "You never really loved me," You know that it can feel like your entire life's work has been erased in a single moment. Think about it. Every lunch you packed, every school concert you attended, every night you stayed awake worrying when they were out late, every holiday you stretched the budget so there would still be presents under the tree. None of it seems to matter when those words come crashing down. I remember a story from a neighbor in Cleveland, Mrs. Thompson. She raised 3 kids on her own after her husband passed unexpectedly. She told me her middle son once shouted at her, "You never cared about me," during a heated argument. She said it felt like someone took all those decades of hard work and threw them into the garbage. But here's what we need to understand. That phrase isn't just unfair, it's cruel. Love doesn't always look the way people expect. Maybe you weren't overly affectionate. Maybe you weren't always home because you had to work. But you showed up. You made sure they had food, safety, opportunities, and guidance. That is love. For someone to dismiss it all with "you never loved me" is often less about truth and more about control. It's a weapon used to cut you down so you'll feel guilty, so you'll bend to their will. And here's the difficult truth. You cannot spend your golden years defending your love to someone who refuses to see it. If your child chooses to rewrite history, if they weaponize your devotion, that says more about where they are in life than about you. Real love doesn't erase decades of care. Real love doesn't want to see you broken. And if your child insists on using those words as a sword against you, you have permission to lay down your shield and walk away. You don't have to prove what you have already lived. 6. You're just being dramatic. There is a phrase that may not sound cruel at first, but when it comes from the mouth of your own child, it can cut deeper than you might expect. That phrase is, "You're just being dramatic." Maybe you've heard it after sharing your feelings about loneliness since your spouse passed away. Maybe it came when you tried to express concern about how little time your child spends visiting or calling. Perhaps you opened up about something you've been worrying about: your health, your finances, your safety, and instead of listening with care, they brushed it off with a laugh and said, "Oh, Mom, you're just being dramatic." Or, "Dad, you're making a big deal out of nothing." At first, it might seem like harmless teasing, but make no mistake, those words carry weight. They do not acknowledge your feelings. They dismiss them. They tell you, in no uncertain terms, that what you are experiencing doesn't matter. Or worse, that you are exaggerating, that your perspective cannot be trusted. And when this happens often enough, it chips away at your confidence. You begin to wonder if maybe you are making too much of things. You start to question whether your emotions are valid or whether you should even bother speaking up again. This is something many older adults face. As we age, the world around us changes. People tend to interrupt more, talk over us at family gatherings, or nod politely without really listening. Technology makes it easier for our voices to get lost in the constant noise of social media, television, and text messages. It is already hard enough to feel heard in today's fast-moving world. But when your own child, someone who should respect your voice, most joins in that pattern of dismissal, it can be heartbreaking. And yet, here is the truth. Your feelings are not dramatic. They are real, they are valid, and they are worth being heard. You have lived a long life filled with experiences, heartbreak and healing, struggle and victory, loss and love. When you speak, you do so not from immaturity, but from wisdom. That is not drama, that is perspective. I remember a gentleman from Boston, Mr. Harris, who once shared his story with me. After his wife passed, he told his daughter that he felt lonely in the evenings, that the silence of the house was heavy. Her response, "Dad, you're just being dramatic. Everyone feels lonely sometimes." He said that those words stung more than she probably realized. It wasn't just that she dismissed his loneliness. It was that she dismissed him. He told me. It made me feel like I didn't matter anymore, like my voice was just noise. And that, my friend, is what happens when you're just being dramatic is used as a shield against real emotions. Sometimes children say it because they are uncomfortable. They don't know how to handle your pain, so they downplay it. Sometimes they say it because they are distracted with their own lives and don't want to slow down long enough to listen. And sometimes, sadly, they say it because they no longer respect the weight of your words, regardless of the reason. The impact is the same. You are silenced, but you do not have to accept that silence. You have every right to say, no, I am not being dramatic. I am sharing my truth. You have the right to expect your voice to be treated with respect, especially by those who once depended on you for guidance, care, and protection. Think about it. When you were raising your children, you didn't dismiss their fears. When they were afraid of the dark, you didn't say, you're just being dramatic. You sat with them, comforted them, and helped them feel safe. When they were nervous about their first day of school, you didn't laugh it off. You reassured them that they were ready and capable. You treated their feelings as real, because they were. Now, in these later years, you deserve the same respect in return. Being told you're just being dramatic can slowly erode your sense of worth if you let it. But you don't have to. You can draw boundaries, not to push people away, but to protect your own peace. If someone cannot listen without dismissing you, you are allowed to take a step back. You are allowed to protect your heart from that kind of disregard. Remember, your life has given you wisdom that cannot be replaced. You carry lessons learned from decades of living. Lessons many younger people have never faced. Your perspective is not only valuable, it is necessary. The world needs it. And anyone who tries to silence it, whether stranger, friend, or even your own child, is not treating you with the dignity you deserve. So the next time you hear, you're just being dramatic, pause for a moment, breathe, and then remind yourself, no, I am not dramatic. I am experienced. I am wise. My feelings matter. And my voice deserves to be heard, because the truth is simple. You are not too old to speak up. You are not too old to demand respect. And you are certainly not too old to be taken seriously. This chapter of your life is not about shrinking down to fit someone else's idea of what you should be. It is about standing tall in the dignity you have earned and refusing to be silenced by careless words. 7. You're the one who needs help, not me. At first glance, those words might sound like concern. Perhaps your son or daughter frames it as if they are worried about your well-being. But too often, this phrase is not spoken out of love. It is spoken as a way to shift blame, to deflect responsibility, and to make you question your own judgment. Imagine sitting across the table from your daughter. You gather the courage to say, "It hurts me when you speak to me in that tone. It makes me feel disrespected." Instead of listening, she folds her arms and says, "You're the problem, not me. You're overreacting. You need help." That response doesn't acknowledge your feelings. It shuts them down. It doesn't take responsibility for the behavior you described. It throws the spotlight back onto you, making you feel as though your emotions are invalid, as if you are imagining things. This is a tactic many people use, whether consciously or not. It's called gaslighting, twisting reality until the other person begins to doubt themselves. And when it comes from your own child, it cuts in a way almost nothing else can. Because they know you. They know your tender places. They know exactly how to make you second-guess yourself. Soon, you may find yourself wondering, am I really the problem? Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I should just keep quiet next time. Before long, you're apologizing for things you never did, shrinking back from conversations you should have every right to have, and questioning your own memory of events. That is the power of this phrase. When it's used as a weapon, it doesn't just hurt your feelings. It erodes your confidence in your own reality. Now let me be clear. There is nothing wrong with needing help. Every one of us, at every stage of life, has moments when we need support, whether emotional, physical, or spiritual. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. But when someone tells you you need help as a way to silence you, to shame you, or to dodge accountability, that is no longer about care. That is control. Think about it. If your son in Chicago, after years of asking for money, hears you finally say no, and his answer is, "You're the one with issues, not me," that isn't concern. That's manipulation. If your daughter in San Diego rolls her eyes when you try to set a boundary and says, "You're crazy, you need help," that isn't compassion, that's disrespect. And here's what you need to remember. You are not obligated to keep standing in that storm. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to say, "No, I will not carry blame that doesn't belong to me." Protecting your peace isn't abandoning your children. It's honoring yourself. It's choosing dignity over constant doubt. The moment you stop tolerating these attacks, the moment you decide to reclaim your self-respect, you begin to feel lighter, stronger, freer, and you send a message not only to your children, but to yourself that your voice matters. Your feelings matter. You matter. So if you ever hear the words, "You're the one who needs help, not me," pause and remember this. You are not crazy. You are not broken, and you are not the problem. You are a parent who loved deeply, who gave generously, and who still deserves respect. Walking away from manipulation is not weakness, it is wisdom. And wisdom, my friend, is something you have in abundance. Final thought. As we close this conversation, I want to remind you of something important. You are worthy of respect, always, not only when you are giving, not only when you are sacrificing, but simply because of who you are and what you have lived. We've talked about 7 phrases that no parent should have to accept. Each one, whether it's "you owe me," "you never really loved me," or "you're the one who needs help," carries the power to chip away at your heart and your peace of mind. And when those words come from the very children you raised, they can feel unbearable. But your value is not measured by their treatment of you. You gave years of your life to raising, protecting, and loving them. That cannot be erased by cruel or careless words. Now, in this season of your life, you have earned the right to live with peace, joy, and dignity. Choosing to walk away from disrespect doesn't mean you stop loving your children. It means you start loving yourself again. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors that allow respect and healing to enter. And even if your children do not change, you will have chosen the path of self-respect. Remember, you are not powerless. You are not invisible. You are not too old to set boundaries. You are a person of wisdom, resilience, and love. And you deserve to spend your years surrounded by people who see your worth, not by those who tear it down. So as you listen to these words, let this be your permission to honor your feelings, to protect your peace, and to walk away from words that wound. You deserve respect, you deserve joy, and you deserve a life filled with people who truly value you. If this message has touched your heart, I invite you to type "Respect Matters" in the comments below. Your words may give courage to someone else who needs to hear it. And if you found this video meaningful, please like it, share it with a friend who might benefit, and subscribe to the Elderly Wisdom. Together, we can build a community where seniors stand strong, live with dignity, and embrace the wisdom that only comes with age. Here's to protecting your peace, honoring your worth, and living your best life at any stage. Stay strong, my friend.